Imagine changing the course of human history while remaining almost completely unknown for decades. Imagine saving millions of lives, laying the foundation for the digital age, and still spending your final years rejected by the very country you helped protect. This is the extraordinary story of Alan Matheson Turing. Alan Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in London, England, into a middle-class British family. From an early age, he displayed an exceptional gift for mathematics and logical reasoning. While most children were occupied with ordinary games, Turing became fascinated by numbers, puzzles, scientific discoveries, and the idea that every complex problem could have a logical solution. His teachers often misunderstood him. He was quiet, socially awkward, and preferred solving mathematical problems to following classroom routines. Some even believed he lacked discipline, unable to recognize that they were witnessing one of the greatest intellectual minds of the 20th century. During his teenage years, Turing formed a close friendship with a fellow student named Christopher Morcom. Christopher became one of the most important people in his life, encouraging his passion for science and mathematics. When Christopher died suddenly from illness at just 18 years old, Turing was devastated. The tragedy deeply influenced his worldview, strengthening his determination to dedicate his life to understanding mathematics, nature, and the human mind. He later attended King's College, Cambridge, where his extraordinary talent quickly earned recognition. By his early 20s, Turing had already established himself as one of Britain's brightest mathematicians. Yet his greatest ideas were still ahead of him. In 1936, before electronic computers even existed, he imagined a machine capable of following instructions, storing information, and solving any computational problem. At the time, it sounded like pure science fiction. History would soon prove otherwise. In 1936, Alan Turing published a mathematical paper that would become one of the most influential scientific works ever written. Within its pages, he described what is now called the Turing machine, a theoretical device capable of performing any calculation by following a sequence of instructions. Although it existed only on paper, this concept became the theoretical blueprint for every programmable computer ever created. Then, in 1939, the world was plunged into World War II. Nazi Germany relied on an encryption device known as Enigma to protect its military communications. Every single day, the machine generated an almost unimaginable number of possible code settings, making enemy messages appear impossible to decipher. Without breaking Enigma, the Allied forces had little knowledge of German military movements, submarine attacks, or strategic operations. Alan Turing was recruited to Bletchley Park, Britain's highly secret intelligence center dedicated to breaking enemy codes. There, surrounded by mathematicians, linguists, engineers, and cryptanalysts, he tackled what many believed was an unsolvable problem. Through relentless experimentation and extraordinary mathematical insight, Turing played a leading role in designing the bomb, an electromechanical machine capable of testing thousands of Enigma settings far faster than any human could. For the first time, Allied intelligence could regularly intercept and understand German communications. This single achievement transformed the course of the war. Naval convoys carrying food and supplies avoided deadly submarine ambushes. Military commanders anticipated enemy attacks. Critical invasions were planned with far greater precision. Many historians believe that breaking Enigma shortened World War II by nearly 2 years, preventing countless battles and saving millions of lives across Europe. But Turing's influence reached far beyond the battlefield. After the war, he became one of the first scientists to seriously explore the possibility that machines could one day imitate human intelligence. His famous question, "Can machines think?" sparked an entirely new scientific discipline that would eventually become artificial intelligence. Today, every smartphone, laptop, search engine, and AI system owes something to the ideas Alan Turing first imagined nearly a century ago. Despite his extraordinary service to his country, Alan Turing would soon become the target of the very government he had helped defend. The end of World War II did not bring peace to everyone. While millions celebrated victory across Europe, Alan Turing returned to civilian life carrying secrets he could never reveal. His work at Bletchley Park remained classified under the Official Secrets Act, meaning he was forbidden from telling anyone, even close friends or family, that he had helped crack the Nazi Enigma code. As far as the public was concerned, Alan Turing was simply a mathematician. No one knew that, behind the scenes, he had become one of the most important figures in Allied intelligence. The intelligence gathered through Enigma decryptions became known by the codename Ultra. Every day, intercepted German communications revealed the locations of U-boats in the Atlantic, Luftwaffe bombing operations, military supply routes, and even Adolf Hitler's strategic movements. The information was so valuable that Allied commanders often faced impossible moral decisions. If they acted too quickly after receiving a decoded message, Germany might realize Enigma had been compromised and immediately change its encryption system. As a result, military leaders occasionally allowed certain attacks to happen rather than expose the fact that they could read Nazi communications. It was a devastating reality of war. Thousands of lives were saved because of ultra-intelligence, but some lives were also knowingly sacrificed to protect an even greater strategic advantage. Historians estimate that the work carried out at Bletchley Park shortened World War II by approximately 2 years and prevented millions of additional deaths across Europe. Yet almost no one outside the intelligence community knew who Alan Turing was. When peace finally arrived, he quietly returned to academic research, continuing his work on computers and artificial intelligence. But another battle was waiting for him. In the early 1950s, homosexuality remained a criminal offense in the United Kingdom under laws dating back to the 19th century. Society viewed same-sex relationships as both illegal and morally unacceptable. Many gay men lived double lives, constantly fearing arrest, public humiliation, imprisonment, or blackmail. The climate of fear became even more severe during the early years of the Cold War. British intelligence believed that homosexual individuals could be vulnerable to blackmail by foreign governments, making them potential security risks regardless of their loyalty or accomplishments. In 1952, after reporting a burglary at his home, Turing openly admitted to police that he was in a relationship with another man. His honesty became the evidence used against him. Instead of thanking him for helping secure victory in the war, the British government prosecuted one of its greatest heroes. The court presented him with 2 devastating options: serve a prison sentence, or accept a course of mandatory hormone treatment intended to suppress his sexuality, a punishment now recognized as chemical castration. Determined to continue his scientific work rather than spend time behind bars, Turing chose the treatment. For more than a year, he endured regular injections of synthetic estrogen. The physical effects were severe. His body changed dramatically. He developed breast tissue, gained weight, suffered chronic fatigue, and experienced a significant decline in physical strength. The emotional consequences were even more devastating. Friends later describe him as increasingly withdrawn and deeply affected by the humiliation he had endured. At the same time, the British government revoked his security clearance. He was barred from classified research, excluded from many government projects, and placed under official surveillance. The irony was almost impossible to comprehend. The man who had helped defeat Nazi Germany, a regime built on hatred and persecution, was now being persecuted by the democracy he had risked everything to protect. Even worse, because his wartime achievements remained secret, the public saw only the criminal charges against him. His greatest accomplishment could not be spoken of. For years, Alan Turing carried both the burden of silence and the weight of injustice, while the world remained unaware that one of its greatest heroes had been abandoned by the very nation he helped save. On June 7, 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home in Wilmslow, Cheshire, England. He was only 41 years old. Beside his bed was a partially eaten apple. The official investigation concluded that he had died from cyanide poisoning and ruled the death a suicide. Although several historians have proposed alternative explanations over the decades, including the possibility of accidental poisoning during chemical experiments conducted in his home, no definitive evidence has overturned the original verdict. Whatever the exact circumstances, the world lost one of its greatest scientific minds far too soon. His death passed with relatively little public attention. Very few people knew what Alan Turing had actually accomplished during the war. The British government continued to protect the secrets of Bletchley Park for decades, leaving his contributions buried in classified archives. The irony was profound. While military leaders, politicians, and generals received public recognition for the Allied victory, one of the men most responsible for making that victory possible remained almost completely unknown. Meanwhile, the world slowly began entering the computer age. The first electronic computers appeared. Programming languages were developed. The Internet would eventually emerge. Artificial intelligence became an entirely new field of scientific research. Nearly every technological revolution of the 20th and 21st centuries could trace part of its intellectual foundation back to Alan Turing's work. Yet he never lived long enough to witness any of it. He never saw personal computers enter millions of homes. He never saw the creation of the World Wide Web. He never imagined smartphones, satellites, cloud computing, or modern artificial intelligence systems capable of performing tasks once thought impossible. His ideas survive him, transforming civilization in ways even he could scarcely have imagined. Universities and research institutions began honoring his contributions. In 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued an official apology on behalf of the government, calling Turing's treatment appalling and acknowledging that the nation owed him a tremendous debt of gratitude. 4 years later, in 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted him a posthumous royal pardon. Soon afterward, legislation commonly known as the Alan Turing Law extended pardons to thousands of men who had been convicted under historical laws criminalizing consensual same-sex relationships. Today, Alan Turing is universally recognized as the father of modern computing, one of the pioneers of artificial intelligence, and among the most influential scientists in human history. His portrait now appears on the United Kingdom's £50 banknote. His name is carried by the prestigious ACM-AM Turing Award, widely regarded as the Nobel Prize of Computing. Research laboratories, universities, schools, scholarships, and scientific institutes across the world bear his name. Every time someone unlocks a smartphone, searches the internet, sends an email, writes software, or interacts with artificial intelligence, they are unknowingly building upon ideas first imagined by Alan Turing nearly a century ago. His life is far more than the story of a brilliant mathematician. It is the story of a man who helped save millions during humanity's darkest war, revolutionized modern science, suffered persecution because of prejudice, and ultimately received the recognition that history had denied him for far too long. Alan Turing never lived to see the digital world he created. But today, that world remembers him. This is Lived Lines. See you next time.